The retreat of Admiral Kextar's fleet sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. For the first time in 3 millennia, Galactic Council forces had been defeated in open combat by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The news spread from world to world faster than light, carried by quantum communication networks that connected every civilized system. On the Council homeworld of SciFiPrime, the ruling assembly met in emergency session. The great crystal dome that housed their government had not seen such chaos since the formation of the Council itself. Representatives from hundreds of species shouted and argued as they tried to understand what had happened. "Impossible," declared Senator Vex Mori, his purple skin flushed with anger. "Primitives with chemical rockets cannot defeat Council technology. There must be an error in the reports." "The reports have been verified," replied High Counselor Tekvaran, her ancient voice carrying the weight of 2,000 years. "Admiral Kexatar lost 1 ship completely destroyed and 2 more heavily damaged. The humans suffered losses as well, but they drove our forces from their system." The assembly fell silent. In the long history of the Council, no species had ever successfully resisted their first contact protocols. Some had tried to negotiate, others had attempted to hide, but none had actually fought back and won. "How is this possible?" asked Senator Mordak. "Our scouts reported basic technology. Nuclear weapons and metal ships." "Basic technology," agreed the High Counselor. "But advanced tactics. The humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They use their primitive weapons with a precision and coordination that our generals did not anticipate." Meanwhile, in Earth's solar system, humanity was preparing for the inevitable counterattack. The victory at Neptune had bought them time. But everyone knew the aliens would return with more ships and a better understanding of human capabilities. Admiral Yejin stood in the main command center, studying holographic displays that showed the positions of every human vessel in the system. The fleet had grown to over 200 ships as every available craft was armed and pressed into service. "Status report," she requested from Commander Taman. "All major installations are fully evacuated. Civilian populations have been moved to hardened shelters or evacuated to secondary colonies. Our remaining industrial capacity is focused on weapons production." "What about the new weapons Dr. Boram has been developing?" Taman smiled grimly. "The electromagnetic pulse mines are ready for deployment. If the aliens try to occupy our inner system, they'll get an unpleasant surprise. We've also completed the first batch of self-guided kinetic kill vehicles. Each one carries enough momentum to punch through a small moon." Dr. Boram entered the command center, carrying a data tablet filled with new discoveries. The battle at Neptune had provided humanity with their first close-up look at alien technology, and the results were fascinating. "I've analyzed the wreckage from their destroyed ship," she reported. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly specialized. They've optimized everything for fighting enemies who use energy weapons and predictable tactics." "What does that mean for us?" asked Admiral Yejin. "It means they're vulnerable to approaches they've never seen before. Their shields are perfect against particle beams and plasma cannons, but they have gaps that kinetic weapons can exploit. Their hull materials are nearly indestructible against conventional weapons, but they can be shattered by the right frequency of electromagnetic pulse." Captain Hyun-Soo joined the briefing via hologram from his ship, which was patrolling the outer system with a squadron of other vessels. "What about their weaknesses in terms of tactics?" "That's the interesting part," Boram continued. "Their ships are designed for individual combat. Each vessel is incredibly powerful on its own, but they don't coordinate well in groups. They expect enemies to fight the same way, ship against ship, honor against honor. But we don't fight with honor," observed Commander Taman. "We fight to win." "Exactly. They can't adapt to our swarm tactics because their entire military doctrine is based on technological superiority, not tactical flexibility." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from the sensor stations. Long-range detectors had picked up new energy signatures approaching from deep space. This time there weren't 3 ships. There were 30. "The Council's response," Admiral Yejin said quietly. "Signal all ships. Implement the distributed defense plan immediately." Across the solar system, human vessels began moving to predetermined positions. Unlike traditional naval formations, the human fleet spread out into a 3-dimensional web that covered billions of cubic kilometers. Each ship was positioned to support its neighbors while maintaining the ability to retreat if overwhelmed. Admiral Kextar commanded the Council's response fleet from his repaired flagship. Around him, the bridges of 30 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy hummed with activity. This time, he would not underestimate the humans. Remember, he broadcast to his fleet commanders, these primitives fight like nothing we have seen before. They use swarm tactics and coordinated attacks. Do not allow them to concentrate their forces. Admiral, called his tactical officer, we're detecting over 200 human vessels scattered throughout their system. They appear to be waiting for us. 200 ships? Kextar studied the display with growing concern. Where did they get so many vessels? Intelligence suggests they have converted civilian craft into warships. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining vessels, anything that can mount weapons and move under its own power. Kextar laughed bitterly. They're using merchant ships against military vessels. Their desperation is showing. But as his fleet entered the outer solar system, the Admiral quickly realized that desperation and effectiveness were not mutually exclusive. The human merchant ships attacked with the same coordinated precision as their military vessels, using improvised weapons that caught the Council forces completely off. Guard, a mining ship equipped with industrial plasma cutters sliced through the hull of the cruiser Righteous Fury before anyone realized it was a threat. A passenger liner converted into a missile platform launched a salvo of nuclear warheads that overwhelmed the defenses of 2 Council destroyers. A cargo hauler filled with kinetic kill vehicles rammed itself into the shields of the battleship Eternal Glory, creating a gap that human fighters immediately exploited. "This is madness," shouted Captain Morgeth from her ship. "They're using civilian vessels as weapons of war." "They're using everything they have," Kextar replied grimly. "Their entire civilization has become a military force." The battle that followed lasted for 3 days and nights. Human ships struck from every direction, using tactics that seemed to come from a dozen different military traditions. Submarine-style stealth attacks, fighter swarm assaults, coordinated missile barrages, and suicide runs that would have horrified any civilized military. By the end of the 3rd day, the Council fleet was in full retreat. 8 ships had been destroyed, and most of the survivors were heavily damaged. The humans had lost nearly half their fleet, but they had achieved something no species had ever accomplished. They had defeated 2 separate Council fleets. Captain Minho led the pursuit of the fleeing alien ships aboard his cruiser Guangzhou's Vengeance. His orders were to harass the enemy retreat and gather intelligence on their capabilities. "Signal the alien flagship," he ordered his communications officer. "Tell them we have a message for their council." Admiral Kextar's image appeared on the screen, his scaled face showing exhaustion and defeat. "What do you want, human?" "To deliver a message," Minho replied calmly. "Tell your council that Earth is not for conquest. Tell them that humans will fight anyone who threatens our freedom, no matter how powerful they think they are. And tell them that if they come back, we'll be ready." The transmission ended, leaving Kextar alone with his thoughts as his battered fleet limped toward Council space. News of the second defeat spread even faster than the first. Across the galaxy, subject species who had served the Council for centuries began to whisper among themselves. If primitive humans could defeat Council fleets, what did that say about Council invincibility? On the world of Kepler 442b, the Valdorian resistance movement launched their first open attack on Council installations in 500 years. On Tau Ceti 4, the enslaved Zephyrians began sabotaging the mining operations that fed the Council's war machine. Throughout Council space, the first cracks appeared in an empire that had seemed unshakable. Ambassador Ji-Wan stood before the emergency session of the United Nations, addressing representatives from every nation on Earth. Behind her, holographic displays showed the damage from the battles, but also the hope in the eyes of humans throughout the solar system. "Today, we have proven that freedom is not granted by the powerful," she declared. "It is taken by the determined. The aliens came here expecting us to surrender because we are primitive. They learned that being primitive in technology does not mean being primitive in spirit." The applause that followed could be heard throughout the chamber and beyond, broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system. Admiral Ye-Jin watched the celebration from her command ship, but her expression remained serious. They had won 2 battles, but the war was... The battle had been raging for 6 hours, and Admiral Kextar was beginning to understand why humans had survived so long despite their primitive technology. They didn't fight like any species the Council had ever encountered. They fought like pack hunters, coordinating attacks with a precision that seemed impossible for beings using such basic Communication system, status report, he demanded, from his tactical officer. 2 of our ships have suffered major damage, Admiral. The Eternal Wisdom has lost main power and is operating on backup systems. The Divine Purpose has multiple hull breaches and has lost 40% of its weapon systems. Kextar stared at the battle display in disbelief. 3 council ships, each representing the pinnacle of galactic technology, were being systematically dismantled by a swarm of primitive metal vessels armed with kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. How many human ships have we destroyed? 17 confirmed kills, Admiral. But they keep coming. Every time we destroy one, 2 more appear from somewhere else in the system. Captain Hyun-Soo stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride, coordinating the human fleet through a combination of tight beam communications and predetermined battle plans. Around him, his officers worked with the calm efficiency of people who knew they were fighting for their species' survival. Tactical, what's the status on the alien flagship? He asked Lieutenant Minji. Their shields are down to 60%, Captain. But they're adapting to our frequency targeting. The windows are getting smaller. Then we'll have to hit them harder during the windows we have. Signal Admiral Yejin. Tell her it's time for Operation Thunderstrike. Admiral Yejin received the message aboard her command ship Jeju's Defiance, hidden behind one of Jupiter's moons. She had been waiting for this moment, keeping the most powerful human ships in reserve while the aliens focused on the smaller vessels. All heavy units, this is Admiral Yejin. Execute Thunderstrike immediately. Target the alien flagship. Make every shot count. From hiding places throughout the solar system, humanity's largest warships revealed themselves. The battleship Olsen's Pride, armed with the most powerful railguns humanity had ever built. The heavy cruiser Busan's Revenge, carrying experimental electromagnetic pulse weapons. The assault carrier Mokpo's Fury, launching a cloud of armed drones that swarmed toward the alien vessels like a metallic hurricane. But the most dangerous ship of all was the submarine Dokdo's Shadow, commanded by Captain Wu Jin. He had spent his career fighting underwater battles on Earth, learning to use stealth and surprise to defeat larger enemies. Now he applied those same tactics in space. Take us in close, he ordered his crew. Use the asteroid field for cover. These aliens have never fought submarine warfare. They won't know what hit them. The Dokdo's Shadow was humanity's first true stealth ship. Its hull coated with materials that absorbed sensor waves and its engines designed to run nearly silent. It slipped through the debris around Neptune like a predator stalking prey. Captain Wu Jin waited until his ship was less than 50 kilometers from the alien flagship before opening fire. His weapons were different from the other human ships. Instead of railguns or missiles, he carried something called breaching torpedoes. The torpedoes were designed to punch through enemy hulls and then deploy teams of soldiers inside hostile ships. They had been developed for boarding actions against human vessels, but Dr. Boram had modified them with electromagnetic warheads that would disrupt alien electronics. Fire all tubes, Captain Wu Jin ordered. 6 torpedoes streaked toward the dominant light, each one following a slightly different path to avoid defensive fire. The alien point defense systems managed to destroy 4 of them, but 2 got through, punching deep into the ship's hull before exploding. Admiral Kextar felt his ship shudder as the torpedoes detonated inside the lower decks. Emergency lights flickered throughout the bridge as power systems struggled to compensate for the electromagnetic damage. What was that? He roared. Some kind of internal explosion, Admiral. The humans have somehow gotten weapons inside our ship. Impossible! But more torpedoes were already on their way. Captain Wu Jin's submarine had been joined by others, all of them using stealth tactics to get close to the alien ships before launching their attacks. The aliens found themselves fighting enemies they couldn't see until it was too late. Lieutenant So Young led another fighter attack against the damaged alien cruiser Divine Purpose. Her squadron had taken heavy losses, but the survivors were veterans now, hardened by hours of combat against impossible odds. Dragon Squadron, target their shield generators, she ordered. We know where they are now. Hit them fast and get out. The fighters dove toward the alien ship like hawks hunting prey. Their weapons had been modified during the battle, loaded with special ammunition designed by the engineering teams. Instead of trying to penetrate the alien shields, the new rounds were designed to overload them. The attack worked perfectly. The Divine Purpose's shields flickered and failed as the fighter squadron's coordinated strike overwhelmed their generators. For 30 seconds, the massive alien ship was completely defenseless, 30 seconds was all Admiral Yejin needed. All heavy units, focus fire on the cruiser, she ordered. Put everything we have into that ship. The battleship Ulsan's Pride fired its main guns, sending a stream of tungsten projectiles toward the defenseless alien vessel. Each round weighed several tons and traveled at a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit the alien hull, the results were devastating. Explosions rippled across the Divine Purpose as the railgun rounds punched completely through the ship from bow to stern. Atmosphere vented from dozens of holes carrying debris and bodies into space. Secondary explosions began as the human rounds found fuel lines and ammunition storage areas. "The cruiser is breaking apart," reported Captain Hyun-soo to the fleet. "Concentrate on the remaining 2 ships." But the aliens were learning too. Captain Morgeth aboard the Eternal Wisdom had been studying human tactics throughout the battle, and she was beginning to understand their strategy. "They're using coordinated attacks to overwhelm our defenses," she told Admiral Kextar over the communication link. "Our shields can handle their weapons individually, but not when they all attack the same point simultaneously." "Then we adapt," Kextar replied. "Spread our formations. Don't let them concentrate their fire. Admiral, with respect, we don't have enough ships to spread out and still provide mutual support. These humans have more vessels than our initial intelligence indicated." Kextar looked at his tactical display with growing dread. The human fleet now numbered over 80 ships and more were arriving every hour. They were small and primitive, but they fought with a coordination that spoke of centuries of experience. "Where are they all coming from?" he wondered aloud. The answer came from an unexpected source. Commander Tae-min, watching the battle from Earth's command center, had been quietly moving ships into position for the past several hours. Cargo vessels armed with improvised weapons, mining ships equipped with industrial cutters that could slice through alien hulls, even passenger liners converted into missile platforms. "Every human ship in the solar system is now armed and moving toward Neptune," he reported to Admiral Yejin. "Civilians, military, commercial. Everyone wants a piece of these aliens." The sight of over 100 human vessels converging on their position finally broke Admiral Kextar's resolve. His 3 ships were powerful, but they couldn't fight an entire civilization that seemed willing to throw every available vessel into battle. "All ships, prepare to withdraw," he ordered, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "We are tactically repositioning to reassess the situation." Captain Hyun-soo smiled grimly as he watched the alien ships begin to retreat. "All human vessels, this is Fleet Command. Pursue and harass, but don't get overconfident. We've hurt them, but they're not defeated yet." The first battle was over, and against all odds humanity had won, but both sides knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would return with more ships and new tactics. Humanity would be ready for them. As the alien ships limped away from Neptune, leaving behind the wreckage of the Divine Purpose, Admiral Kextar sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. "Humans are not like other species," he reported. "They do not fight to surrender. They fight to win. Request immediate reinforcement of all available fleet assets." For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council faced an enemy that refused to be conquered. Admiral Kextar had grown tired of waiting. 72 hours had passed since the ultimatum was delivered, and the humans had not responded with surrender documents. Instead, their ships continued to move in strange patterns throughout their solar system, like insects buzzing around a light. "Enough," he declared from his command chair aboard the dominant light. "These primitives clearly do not understand the gravity of their situation. Captain Morgeth, destroy their mining station on the outer planet. A demonstration of our power will clarify their options." Captain Morgeth's red eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "It will be my pleasure, Admiral. The station appears to be defended by only 2 small warships. Perfect. Use minimal force. We want survivors to spread word of what happens to those who defy the Council." The mining station orbited Neptune, extracting rare elements from the planet's moons. 3,000 humans worked there, along with their families. It was far from Earth but close to human hearts, a symbol of humanity's reach into the stars. Captain Junho watched the alien ships approach on his tactical display. His destroyer Busan's Fury was one of 2 ships defending the station, along with the cruiser Daegu's Shield. Against 3 massive alien vessels, they stood no chance in a traditional battle, but humans had stopped fighting traditional battles long ago. All stations. This is Captain Jun-ho. He broadcast on the emergency frequency. Execute Operation Scattered Thunder. All civilian personnel to emergency shelters immediately. The mining station's warning sirens began to wail as workers rushed to reinforced bunkers deep inside the asteroid. They had drilled for this moment, hoping it would never come. Lieutenant So Young was already in space, leading her fighter squadron from the carrier Incheon's Valor when the battle began. Her 12 fighters were tiny compared to the alien ships, each one smaller than a shuttle, but they were fast and they carried something the aliens had never seen before. Dragon Squadron, begin your attack run, she ordered. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to make them angry. The fighters dove toward the lead alien ship like sparrows attacking an eagle. Their weapons were small railguns and missile pods designed for fighting other human vessels. Against alien shields, they should have been useless, but Dr. Boram's calculations had been correct. As the fighters opened fire, their projectiles punched through the rotating shield frequencies at precisely the right moments. Tiny holes appeared in the alien ship's hull, venting atmosphere and causing minor explosions. Captain Morgeth stared at her displays in shock. How are those insects penetrating our shields? Unknown, Captain, replied her tactical officer. Their weapons are primitive, but they're hitting us during momentary gaps in our defensive matrix. Impossible. Our shields are perfect. Apparently not, Captain. The real shock came when Captain Jun-ho's destroyer opened fire. Instead of energy beams or particle weapons, the human ship launched a stream of metal projectiles moving at tremendous speed. The railgun rounds struck the alien ship's shields in rapid succession, each impact perfectly timed to exploit the frequency gaps. Several rounds penetrated completely, tearing through the alien ship's outer hull and causing secondary explosions. Alarms began sounding throughout the vessel as atmosphere rushed out through dozens of holes. Damage report, Captain Morgeth shouted. Multiple hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We're losing atmosphere in 3 sections. Minor damage to secondary power systems. For the first time in 1,000 years, a council ship had been damaged in combat. Captain Morgeth's rage burned cold and steady. All weapons target that destroyer. Vaporize it. The alien ship's main gun swiveled toward the Busan's Fury, charging with enough energy to destroy a small moon. But Captain Jun-ho had no intention of sitting still for execution. Emergency maneuvers, he ordered. Release the cargo pods. The destroyer suddenly dropped dozens of metal containers, each one the size of a shuttle. To alien sensors, they looked like cargo or escape pods. In reality, they were something much more dangerous. As the alien weapon fired, Captain Jun-ho's ship accelerated away at maximum speed. The energy beam missed by mere kilometers, instead striking the cloud of metal pods. Each pod exploded in a brilliant flash of light and electromagnetic energy, creating a temporary field of interference that blinded alien sensors. What was that? Demanded Admiral Kekstar from the flagship. Some kind of defensive chaff, reported Captain Morgeth. Their technology is more sophisticated than our initial scans indicated. Sophisticated or not, they're still primitives. Destroy them all. But destroying humans was proving more difficult than expected. The moment the alien ships fired their main weapons, human vessels throughout the solar system began moving. Not toward Earth as the aliens expected, but toward the battle zone. Captain Yeonsu watched the tactical display from the bridge of Seoul's Pride. Red dots representing alien ships, blue dots representing human forces. The math was simple. Humanity was outnumbered and outgunned. The solution was equally simple. Change the rules of engagement. All ships implement attack pattern Delta, he broadcast on the command frequency. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to survive long enough to hurt them. Across the solar system, human ships began converging on Neptune, not in neat formations like traditional space navies, but in chaotic swarms that attacked from every direction simultaneously. Destroyers launched clouds of missiles while fighters darted between alien ships like angry hornets. Cruisers used their railguns to punch holes in alien hulls, while smaller vessels acted as spotters and electronic warfare platforms. The aliens found themselves fighting a kind of war they had never experienced. Human ships didn't stay still to exchange fire. They moved constantly, using asteroids and space debris as cover. They attacked in coordinated groups, then scattered before the aliens could respond effectively. Most shocking of all, Some human ships deliberately rammed alien vessels after emptying their weapons. Captain Min Q of the corvette Guangzhou's Hammer was the first to use his ship as a guided missile, driving his vessel into an alien weapon port at full speed. The explosion destroyed his ship but left the alien vessel without its main gun. "These humans fight like madmen," observed Commander Zolkan aboard the flagship. "They're using their own ships as weapons." Admiral Kextar watched the battle with growing unease. 3 Council ships were fighting nearly 50 human vessels, and while the humans were taking losses, they were also inflicting damage. Real damage. His ship's shields were failing in multiple sections. Their hulls were perforated with railgun holes, and their weapon systems were being systematically targeted and destroyed. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." Captain Hyunsu's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the bridge of Soul's Pride showed signs of battle damage, but the human captain looked calm and determined. "Admiral Kextar, I presume. I wanted to thank you for the demonstration of your weapons. Our scientists found it very educational." "Surrender now," Kextar growled, "and I will spare your remaining ships." Hyunsu smiled. "I don't think so. You see, Admiral, you made a critical error. You assumed we would fight like every other species you've encountered, but humans don't fight to win. We fight to survive, and we've gotten very good at it." The transmission ended as human fighters began another attack run on the alien flagship. This time they were joined by Lieutenant So Young's squadron, which had rearmed and refueled during the battle's chaos. For the first time in 3 millennia, Admiral Kextar felt something he had almost forgotten: fear. The humans were supposed to be primitives, but primitives didn't coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. Primitives didn't use their own technology's weaknesses as strengths. Primitives didn't fight like they had nothing to lose. As another salvo of human railgun rounds punched through his ship's failing shields, Kextar realized that humanity might be primitive in technology, but they were anything but primitive in warfare. The battle was far from over, and for the first time in his long life, the Admiral wasn't certain who would win. Dr. Boram stared at the data streaming across her computer screens in the underground research facility beneath Geneva. Around her, dozens of scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology they were observing through long-range sensors. The aliens had been in Earth's solar system for 18 hours, and every minute brought new discoveries. "Their shields are definitely energy-based," she said to Commander Taemin, who stood behind her chair studying the readouts. "But look at this pattern." Taemin leaned closer. He was a stocky man with intelligent eyes and hands that bore the scars of years working with explosives and weapons. As head of Human Defense Force Strategic Planning, he had spent his career preparing for wars that might never come. Now one of those wars was knocking on humanity's door. "Show me," he said. Boram pointed to a series of waves on her screen. Their shields pulse in regular cycles. "See how the energy signature changes every 2.3 seconds? It's like they're rotating through different frequencies to protect against various types of attacks." "Makes sense." Taemin nodded. "If you're fighting enemies with energy weapons, you'd want to constantly change your defensive frequency so they can't tune their weapons to penetrate." "Exactly. But here's the interesting part." Boram switched to a different display. "They're only cycling through energy frequencies. There are gaps in their coverage, and what kind of gaps? Physical ones. Their shields are designed to stop energy beams and particle weapons, but I don't think they're optimized for kinetic impacts, especially not multiple kinetic impacts arriving simultaneously." Taemin smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. "You mean good old-fashioned bullets?" "Very big, very fast bullets. Our railgun projectiles travel at significant fractions of light speed. If we can time our shots to hit during the right part of their shield cycle, we might actually hurt them." Taemin pulled up a chair and sat down next to her. "What else have you learned?" Boram opened another file. "Their ships are huge, but that might work against them. Look at these thermal imaging scans. Their power systems are centralized in the middle of each ship. If we could get past their shields and hit those central cores, the whole ship would lose power. Maybe it would explode. Either way, it would be out of the fight." Across the facility, other teams were making their own discoveries. Dr. Wu Sung had figured out how the alien communication systems worked. Engineer Nari had identified weak points in their hull design. Physicist Kyung Ho had calculated the power requirements for their massive ships and found them surprisingly inefficient. They've been the biggest predators in the galaxy for so long. They've gotten lazy, Timon said as he reviewed all the reports. Their technology is advanced, but it's not optimized for fighting equals. It's designed to intimidate and overpower primitives. Which we are, Boram pointed out. On paper, yes. But we're primitives who've spent our entire history fighting other primitives who were trying to kill us. These aliens probably haven't faced real resistance in centuries. Above ground, the response to the alien ultimatum was taking shape. Captain Hyun-soo received his orders from Earth Command. Humanity would not surrender. Instead, they would implement something called the Distributed Engagement Protocol, a strategy that had been developed during the war games on Mars. All human vessels will spread out across the solar system, Admiral Ye-jin explained over the secure communication channel. No ship travels alone, but no two ships stay together. If the aliens want to hunt us down, they'll have to split their forces. What about the civilian population? Asked Captain Junho from his destroyer Busan's Fury. His ship was smaller than the exploration vessel Seoul's Pride, but it carried more weapons and had thicker armor. Evacuation protocols are already in effect. Deep shelters on Earth, emergency habitats on the Moon and Mars. If this goes badly, at least some of humanity will survive. Lieutenant So Young listened to the briefing from her fighter squadron's ready room on the carrier Incheon's Valor. She was young for a squadron leader, but she had earned her position through skill and courage in countless training exercises. Now those exercises would be put to the ultimate test. Our job is to be annoying, she told her pilots. We can't destroy their big ships, but we can distract them. Hit-and-run attacks, electronic warfare, anything to keep them busy while the bigger ships get into position. The aliens, meanwhile, were growing confused by human behavior. From their command ship, Envoy Velnara watched human vessels scatter across the solar system like startled fish. Are they fleeing? She asked Admiral Kextar. It doesn't look like fleeing, he replied, studying the tactical display. They're moving into some kind of formation, but I can't identify the pattern. Perhaps their primitive minds cannot comprehend the hopelessness of their situation, suggested Captain Morgeth. Should we demonstrate our power by destroying one of their worlds? Not yet. Let them exhaust themselves with whatever foolish plan they're attempting. It will make their eventual surrender more complete. But Kextar was beginning to feel uneasy. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded this way. Most surrendered immediately after seeing council ships. A few tried to negotiate. The stubborn ones gathered their fleets for a final, glorious battle that usually lasted less than an hour. Humans were doing something different. They were spreading out, hiding, preparing for a kind of warfare the Council had never seen. Back on Earth, Commander Taemin stood in the main strategic planning room, surrounded by displays showing every human ship in the solar system. Each vessel was a dot of light on the vast three-dimensional map. To alien eyes, it would look like chaos. To human eyes, it was a carefully planned trap. Remember, he said to the assembled officers, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive long enough to make them bleed. Every alien ship we damage, every alien life we take sends a message to the rest of the galaxy. Humans don't surrender. Dr. Boram entered the room, carrying a portable computer. I have the final calculations on their shield frequencies. If we coordinate our attacks precisely, we can create windows where their defenses are vulnerable. How long are these windows? Asked Taemin. 0.7 seconds. But if we hit them from multiple directions during that window, we might punch through. Taemin nodded. Upload the data to all fleet commanders. Make sure every weapons officer understands the timing. As night fell on Earth, humanity prepared for its first interstellar war. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology centuries ahead of their own. But they had something the aliens didn't expect. The knowledge that they were fighting for their survival. Humans had never learned how to surrender. They were about to teach the galaxy what that meant. Captain Hyun-soo stood on the bridge of the UN Seoul's Pride, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship was humanity's newest exploration vessel, built with the best technology Earth could produce. Its hull was made of titanium and carbon composites, and its nuclear engines could push it to nearly 10% of light speed. To human eyes, it was a marvel of engineering. To alien eyes, it would look like a primitive metal box. Captain, called Lieutenant Minji from her station at Tactical Control. Her fingers moved quickly over the touchscreen displays, checking weapon systems and defensive measures. Long-range sensors are picking up something unusual. Hyun-soo walked over to her station. He was a tall man with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen combat during the Mars Independence War. That conflict had taught humanity hard lessons about space warfare, lessons that were built into every ship and weapon they now used. "What kind of unusual?" he asked. Minji pointed to 3 bright dots on her screen. 3 massive energy signatures moving toward Earth. "They're huge, sir. Each one is putting out more power than our entire planetary grid." Chief Engineer Daeho looked up from his console across the bridge. He was younger than the captain, with quick hands and a mind that could solve almost any technical problem. "Could be natural phenomena. Space is full of weird energy sources." "No," Minji said, shaking her head. "The movement is too controlled." "These are ships, sir. Really, really big ships." Hyun-soo felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it seemed they had their answer. "How big?" "Each one is approximately 15 kilometers long and 8 kilometers wide. Our entire ship could fit inside one of their cargo bays." The bridge went quiet. Every human officer stared at the tactical display, trying to understand what they were seeing. The ships were still 3 days away, but their size was already clear from the energy they put out. "Communications," Hyun-soo said to the young officer at the comm station. "Send a message to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Tell them we have contact with unknown vessels of extraordinary size approaching the solar system." "Yes, sir," the communications officer replied, his voice slightly shaky. 2 hours later, the alien ships were close enough to send a message. It came through on all frequencies at once in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, and dozens of other human languages. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the voice said. It was calm and cold, like someone reading from a script. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council, the governing body of this sector of space. You are a young species that has recently developed space travel. We come to offer you membership in our great civilization." On the main screen, images began to appear. Beautiful alien cities with towers that reached into the clouds, peaceful beings of different species working together, advanced technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. "The Council brings peace, prosperity, and protection to all member species," the voice continued. "You will be given advanced technology and the wisdom of species that are thousands of years older than your own. In return, you must surrender all military vessels and weapons to Council control. You will be governed by Council law and serve the greater good of the galaxy." The images changed. Now they showed the wreckage of ships and the ruins of cities, beings in chains working in mines and factories. "Species that refuse Council membership face pacification," the voice said, still calm and emotionless. "Your weapons and defenses will be destroyed. Your military leaders will be imprisoned. Your people will serve the Council whether they choose to or not. The choice is yours. Join willingly and prosper, or resist and face the consequences. You have 72 Earth hours to decide. Prepare your surrender documents and order all military vessels to stand down. We will return for your answer." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in total silence. Daeho was the first to speak. "Well, that was friendly." Minji checked her displays again. "The ships have stopped at the edge of our solar system. They're just waiting." Hyun-soo walked back to his command chair, his mind racing. Humanity had always known this day might come, but they had hoped for a more peaceful first contact. These aliens wanted complete surrender before any real negotiation could begin. "Get me a secure channel to Earth Command," he ordered. Minutes later, Admiral Yejin's face appeared on the screen. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen humanity's worst wars. Behind her, Hyun-soo could see the chaos of Earth's military command center. "Captain, I assume you received the alien transmission?" "Yes, Admiral." "What are your orders?" "The President is meeting with world leaders now, but I can tell you what the military recommendation will be. We don't surrender to threats. Never have, never will." Hyun-soo nodded. He had expected as much. Humanity had fought too hard for freedom to give it up without a fight. "What do we know about their capabilities?" he asked. "Our scientists are analyzing their energy signatures now. Dr. Bo-Ram thinks their shields work on rotating frequency patterns. Commander Taman is already working on tactical options." "Tactical options against ships 15 kilometers long?" Admiral Yejin smiled grimly. "David fought Goliath with a sling and a stone, Captain. We'll use what we have." The connection ended, leaving Hyun-soo alone with his thoughts. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly, checking systems and preparing for whatever would come next. They all knew the odds. 3 massive alien ships against humanity's small fleet of metal vessels with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. But they also knew their history. Humans had faced impossible odds before and found ways to win. They had fought wars against overwhelming enemies and survived. They had built cities in space and tamed hostile worlds. Minji looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting movement from the alien ships. They're launching smaller vessels. Looks like scout ships. How many?" 6 contacts, sir. Each one is about the size of our destroyers. Hyun-Soo stood up. Even their scout ships were as large as humanity's biggest warships. But size wasn't everything. Humans had learned that lesson in wars across Earth and Mars. All stations prepare for possible contact. Weapons to standby, shields to maximum. Send a message to all human vessels in the system. Maintain current positions but be ready to move on my signal. "Sir," Daeho said from his station, "what if they're telling the truth? What if they really do have thousands of years of advanced technology?" Hyun-Soo looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth and all the people who called it home. "Then we'll learn something new about their technology when we fight them. We always do." The alien scout ships moved closer and humanity prepared for war. The massive ship-dominant light floated in the dark space between stars. Its crystal walls glowed with soft blue light, and inside, the most powerful beings in the galaxy made decisions that affected billions of lives. Admiral Kextar stood before a huge window, looking out at the 12 ships that followed his command. Each ship was the size of a small moon, built from technology that took thousands of years to perfect. Kextar was tall and covered in green scales that shined like metal. His yellow eyes had seen 3,000 years of war and peace. In all that time, no species had ever refused to join the Galactic Council when asked. Some tried to fight, but they always lost quickly. The Council's ships were too strong, their weapons too powerful, and their shields impossible to break. "Admiral," called Envoy Velnara as she walked into the command center. Her blue skin was smooth like glass and her forearms moved with graceful precision. She carried a data tablet that glowed with new information. "We have received the reports about the new species." Kextar turned away from the window. "Tell me about these humans." Velnara touched the tablet and a hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed a small blue planet with one moon, surrounded by primitive metal ships that looked like toys compared to Council vessels. "They call their world Earth," Velnara said. "Our scouts have been watching them for several cycles. They use chemical rockets to move between planets. Their most powerful weapons are nuclear bombs. Their ships are made of basic metals and use computers that are barely more advanced than counting machines." Kextar laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Chemical rockets? How do they even leave their planet with such primitive technology?" "Very slowly, Admiral. It takes them months to travel between their closest planets. They have only spread to 3 worlds in their system. Their entire space fleet has maybe 200 ships, and most of those are cargo vessels." Other officers in the command center began to chuckle. Commander Zolakhan, whose purple skin was marked with the scars of many battles, shook his massive head. "I remember when the Viridians tried to fight us with nuclear weapons. We destroyed their entire fleet without taking any damage." "The Viridians at least had energy shields," added Captain Morgeth, her red eyes gleaming with amusement. "These humans have nothing but metal plates welded together. Our weakest scout ship could destroy their strongest battleship." Velnara nodded in agreement. "The humans seem to spend most of their time fighting each other. Our observers report that they have had over 1,000 wars in just the last few centuries. They cannot even achieve peace on their own planet. Typical primitive behavior," Kextar said, walking back to his command chair. The chair was carved from a single piece of black crystal and hummed with power. "They waste their energy on meaningless conflicts instead of developing proper technology. Have they been told about the Council's offer?" "Not yet, Admiral. We wanted your permission before making first contact." Kextar sat down and touched a control on his chair. The hologram changed to show recordings of other species that had joined the Council. Proud aliens bowing before Council ships. Powerful leaders signing documents of surrender. Entire civilizations giving up their weapons and accepting Council rule. "Show them the standard presentation," he ordered. "Let them see what happens to species that join willingly, and what happens to those that refuse. Then give them the usual choice: surrender in 3 days or face pacification." "Should we position the full fleet around their planet?" asked Commander Zolkhan. "No need," Kextar replied. "Take only 3 ships. That should be more than enough to convince them. Save the rest of the fleet for more important matters. Velnara looked surprised. Only 3 ships, Admiral? What if they try to resist? Kextar's laugh echoed through the command center. Resist with what? Their chemical rockets? Their nuclear bombs might scratch our paint, but they cannot even penetrate our basic shields. 3 ships will make the point clear enough. Very well, Admiral. I will prepare the diplomatic message now. As Velnara walked away, Kextar turned back to the window. In the distance, he could see the lights of Council worlds, billions of beings living peaceful lives under Council protection. Some had joined willingly after seeing Council technology. Others had required more convincing. A few had been foolish enough to fight. Those few species no longer existed. Captain Morgeth, he called. Yes, Admiral? When you deliver the message to these humans, make sure to include footage from the Kandorian resistance. Show them what happens when primitives try to fight Council forces. Captain Morgeth smiled, showing sharp white teeth. Of course, Admiral. The sight of Kandorian ships being destroyed in seconds usually convinces even the most stubborn species. Good. These humans will see the wisdom of joining us quickly. Their primitive minds will understand that resistance is pointless. The command center buzzed with activity as officers prepared for another routine first contact. They had done this hundreds of times before. A new species would be discovered, shown Council power, and given a choice. The smart ones surrendered immediately. The stubborn ones needed a demonstration. The very stupid ones were eliminated. None of the Council officers expected humans to be different. They were just another primitive species with basic technology and simple minds. In a few days, Earth would be another Council world, and humans would be another subject species working for the greater good of the galaxy. Kextar closed his eyes and remembered his first command, over 2,000 years ago. He had been young then, eager to prove himself in battle, but there had been no real battles for centuries. Every species they encountered was too weak to provide real opposition. Sometimes he missed the old days when enemies could actually fight back. Perhaps these humans will at least put on a good show before they surrender, he thought to himself. It would be nice to see some spirit, even if it is pointless. The dominant light turned toward Earth, followed by 2 smaller Council ships. In 3 days, they would arrive at the human homeworld and deliver their message. In 4 days, they expected to receive humanity's surrender. They had no idea how wrong they were.